The media, citing sources like the Jose Anilbo, showcases AI drones and hypersonic arsenals as the definitive game changers in modern warfare. This is a calculated misdirection. The kinetic cost of a missile exchange is a known quantity, a measurable risk. The primary strategic vector is not noise, it is absolute, weaponized silence. The central nervous system of global power is not in its military bases. It is encased in 750,000 miles of fiber optic cable on the ocean floor. This is the locus of financial markets, command and control, and strategic intelligence. An asymmetric attack on this system is not about explosive force. It is about informational severance. This is not theoretical. It is a documented protocol. According to Reuters, Iran has deployed this strategy internally, executing total internet blackouts to neutralize dissent. This demonstrates a state-level understanding that information control is absolute control. An adversary simply needs to externalize this blueprint. This is the blueprint for creating a blind Leviathan, a hegemon with unmatched kinetic power, carrier groups, nuclear protocols, rendered completely impotent. If it cannot receive targeting data, verify launch orders, or clear financial transactions, its strength becomes a systemic liability. CSIS reports confirm that a coordinated severing of key subsea and satellite nodes would trigger a global liquidity crisis in minutes, long before a single missile could launch. The motive is not expansion, it is survival. A conventional war, even a limited one, is a domestic liability. CSIS analysis confirms that for a state like Russia, a protracted kinetic campaign becomes a zero-sum equation internally. The immense financial drain and human cost create a solvency crisis not on the balance sheet, but in political capital. When a war becomes unpopular, the leadership's primary objective pivots from external victory to internal stability. The system cannot afford a conventional win. It is mathematically unsustainable. This weakness forces a strategic pivot. When the cost of conventional force projection becomes untenable, the only logical protocol is to adopt asymmetric vectors. This is not a retreat. It is an economic recalculation. Analysis from sources like the Chosin Ilbo documents this shift. The game changers are now low-cost, high-leverage assets like AI drones. A state facing a solvency crisis will always choose the weapon that inflicts maximum economic and strategic friction on an adversary for the lowest possible kinetic cost to itself. It's a fire sale on lethality. The ultimate objective is to export this solvency crisis. The blueprint, as outlined by the strategic simultaneity conundrum, is to use these cheap, asymmetric attacks to force an identical resource drain on the hegemon. The motive is to mire the target in multiple, low-intensity conflicts that are individually manageable but collectively catastrophic. By forcing a response that is economically disproportionate to the initial attack, the aggressor turns the hegemon's strength, its expensive conventional military, into its primary systemic liability. The central mechanism is not ideology, it's arbitrage. A RUSI analysis puts the kinetic cost-exchange ratio into stark relief. A single main battle tank, a $5 million asset, is now a systemic liability. The vector designed to neutralize it? A $500 first-person view drone. The math is a death sentence for conventional military doctrine. For the price of one tank, an adversary can field 10,000 hunter-killer drones. This is not a one-for-one trade. It is a mathematical certainty of attrition. The hegemon's entire order of battle is priced for a conflict that no longer exists, creating a systemic solvency crisis on the battlefield itself. This economic imbalance is the accelerant. Strategists refer to it as the democratization of violence. The monopoly on projecting significant kinetic force, once held exclusively by superpowers and their billion-dollar platforms, has been broken. This asymmetric leverage is the blueprint that enables the strategic simultaneity conundrum, turning a hegemon's global military footprint from a symbol of power into a portfolio of liabilities waiting to be liquidated. The zones of conflict that matter are not the ones you see on the news. They are the proxy laboratories, designated regions of manufactured instability where next-generation warfare is tested and calibrated. These are not failures of local governance. They are features of a global strategic deployment. RUSI documents confirm state and non-state actors are using these zones to stage asymmetric attacks, perfecting the blueprint for systemic disruption. The core operational theory being tested is the strategic simultaneity conundrum. Political science simulations, once confined to classrooms, are now live-fire exercises. The objective is to determine the precise number of low-grade draining crises required to paralyze a hegemon's command and control. As stated in Political Science Now reports, the goal is to force an opponent into a state of decision paralysis by presenting multiple, simultaneous threats that conventional forces cannot address without incurring a solvency crisis. The primary delivery mechanism for this strategy is the AI-enhanced drone. As detailed by outlets like the Chosun Ilbo, these are warfare's new game-changers. Their value is not in winning a conventional battle, but in their asymmetric cost-benefit ratio. For the price of a used car, an adversary can force a multi-million-dollar kinetic response from a carrier group or airbase. This is not warfare. It is economic attrition, executed with hardware you can order online. These gray zones also serve as testbeds for non-kinetic protocols. The 2019 Iranian internet shutdown, reported by Reuters, was not merely a tool for protest suppression. It was a large-scale field test of information dominance and societal control under stress conditions. CSIS analysts monitor these events as live demonstrations of capabilities intended for export and deployment against Western network architecture. While legacy analysis points you toward lagging indicators like precious metals, which, according to financial reports, are not predicting collapse, the real metric of risk is the proliferation of these proxy laboratories. The math is simple. The more laboratories, the faster the calibration. The faster the calibration, the sooner the blueprint can be deployed directly against the hegemon's domestic infrastructure, bypassing conventional defenses entirely. The protocol is to escalate the frequency and complexity of these gray zone attacks. The next 12 to 18 months will see these calibrated asymmetric tactics, perfected in foreign proxy labs, begin to manifest inside Western borders. The target will not be armies, but critical logistical nodes, power grids, port facilities, and data centers. The objective is not victory, but to force the mathematical certainty of strategic insolvency, leaving only non-linear escalation as the final and most dangerous response protocol. The Launch on Warning protocol is not a choice. It is a mathematical function. It exists because the flight time of an intercontinental ballistic missile is under 30 minutes. Once an incoming launch is detected, a nation's leadership has a window of minutes, not hours, to retaliate or face systemic decapitation. According to RUSI analysis, the protocol is a zero-sum calculation designed to guarantee a second strike, ensuring mutual destruction. Waiting for impact confirmation is a strategic liability that a command structure cannot afford. This protocol is now the primary vector of attack. Adversaries understand its logic. The critical vulnerability is not the missile silo, but the sensory apparatus that triggers the launch sequence. AI and drones have become warfare game changers, as documented by the Chosun Ilbo. A cyber attack is no longer about stealing data. It is a kinetic event trigger. It can blind radar, sever satellite uplinks, or, most critically, inject false positives into the early warning system. This creates the fog of digital war. The commander is now systemically trapped. The protocol demands a response to a launch detection. But the digital fog means the detection itself cannot be trusted. Do you trust the machines and initiate global thermonuclear war based on a potential ghost signal? Or do you distrust the machines and bet your nation's existence that it's a bluff? This is the core of the strategic simultaneity conundrum, tested in crisis simulations. CSIS reports confirm adversaries are actively developing capabilities to exploit these decision-making seams. An adversary can force this choice without ever launching a physical asset. They trigger the dilemma, not the missile. The objective is to force the hegemon into a choice between two forms of strategic insolvency: a slow-motion defeat by paralysis, or a rapid escalation based on corrupted data. The protocol, designed for a world of analog certainty, becomes a doomsday machine in an age of digital warfare. The true weapon is the algorithm that forces the launch. The market is mispricing risk. Reports show precious metals are not signaling economic collapse, but this is a systemic error. The market is watching the wrong vector. The true threat is not a liquidity crisis. It is a strategic solvency crisis. Adversary doctrine, confirmed in crisis simulations, is built on the strategic simultaneity conundrum. This blueprint uses cheap, asymmetric force multipliers, what CSIS documents call AI and drone game changers, to generate multiple, simultaneous drains on hegemonic military and financial resources. Before triggering a multi-front scenario, a calibration shot is required. This is a low-cost, high-impact probe to test response protocols and measure political paralysis. The event must be attribution impossible to prevent a kinetic launch-on-warning response, similar to how state actors can engineer an internet blackout and maintain plausible deniability. The forecast for the next 12 months is a targeted, non-kinetic event against critical digital infrastructure. Expect a cascading blackout at a primary data center hub or a major logistical port's terminal operating system. The objective is not destruction, but to signal a credible capability to sever the economic arteries of the West with zero attribution.